Sometimes I think that modern audiences forget just how big of a star Mel Gibson was for about a 20-year period there in the mid to late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
Oh, what do you want to hear, man? Do you want to hear that sometimes I think about eating a bullet?
There really was almost no one in his league. He was arguably the biggest box office draw of the era. His popularity dwarfed, for a little while anyway, that of his contemporaries like Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, or even Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
With perhaps his closest competition being Harrison Ford in his absolute prime. But arguably, Mel Gibson was even bigger. The thing about Mel Gibson was that he was just as popular with women as he was with men. He could kill it in action movies like the Lethal Weapon series where he rocked some mullet and some plaid, but then he could turn around and make a rom-com like What Women Want and have it be wildly successful to the point that it's still one of the highest grossing romantic comedies of all time.
Oh yeah, I remember why. Because I have a vagina!
He was much in demand for action, romance, Oscar bait, period dramas. Yes, he even played Hamlet. Any genre that you want, Mel Gibson was your man, and his fall from grace as a leading man might be one of the steepest in motion picture history, with him now largely regulated to co-starring roles in the kinds of geezer teases that marred Bruce Willis's late career before his health forced him to retire. You know the type I'm talking about. Movies like Panama, Force of Nature, or whatever other terrible movie he's starring in this week, where he shows up for 10 minutes, scowls at the camera, looks like he's having a miserable, miserable time, and, well, leaves before the credits roll. People have all but forgotten that Mel Gibson was at the top of the world at one point, and when you watch him in these VOD action movies, what really makes it tragic is you can see that he knows he's in crap, and that's really sad.
I'm surprised you haven't heard about me. You know, I got a bad reputation. I mean, sometimes I just go nuts like now.
Alas, Mel Gibson was a guy who was dragged down to earth by his own demons, I guess, to some extent. However, as bad as his career as an actor seems to be going nowadays, he's still very much in demand as a director, with him currently filming Lionsgate's two-part The Resurrection of the Christ. It's been a tremendous blessing to his career. As embarrassing as some of his movies as an actor are, his filmography as a director, minus last year's unfortunate flight risk, is mostly untainted. And more than anything, it was 1995's Braveheart, in which he starred as William Wallace, the Scottish rogue, that established him now and forever as a great director.
Should have remembered the rocks.
I should have.
So, how did Mel Gibson turn a bloody story about Scottish independence into a blockbuster? Let's find out what the happened to Braveheart. Flashback to the year 1993, when Gibson made his directorial debut in The Man Without a Face. Largely forgotten now, it cast him against type as a badly scarred schoolteacher who befriends and mentors a young boy. The movie earned very respectful reviews and did okay at the box office, turning a modest profit. It was a movie that allowed Gibson the confidence to tackle what had been a passion project for him, the story of William Wallace. So William Wallace was a Scottish knight who was one of the leaders of the First War of Scottish Independence against King Edward of England. He was drawn and quartered for high treason, and he became a cultural icon amongst the Scots, who viewed him as a hero in their own fight for independence. It was a story that resonated for Gibson, who had been offered the role as an actor only originally, with Randall Wallace's script having initially been greenlit at MGM when the legendary Alan Ladd Jr., yes, the man who greenlit Star Wars, was running the studio. When he was forced out of the studio, he took the project with him and offered it to Mel, who loved the script but felt that at 38, he was just too old to play William Wallace.
Put his head between his legs and kiss his own arse.
Yet, he also admitted that he could not shake the story and, fresh off the success of The Man Without a Face, felt he could direct it. He initially wanted a young Brad Pitt, who wasn't quite a star yet, or Jason Patric for the role, only for Paramount to refuse to greenlight the movie if he didn't also star. After all, he was literally the world's biggest star at the moment, and him being in the lead guaranteed that the movie had a good chance to turn a profit. Historical dramas at the time were far from a sure bet. Although, curiously, movies about Scottish rebels were having a moment, with MGM's Rob Roy, starring Liam Neeson, beating Braveheart to theaters by just a few months. And coincidentally, both would co-star legendary Scottish actor Brian Cox.
You have the look of your mother.
Gibson financed the movie through his own Icon Productions, with Paramount footing 1/3 of the budget for the domestic rights, while 20th Century Fox got the rest of the world for their 2/3 investment. It's the same way they made Titanic. Even still, the budget was comparatively modest for such a large-scale film, costing somewhere in the 50 to 70 million range. As such, Gibson was the only superstar in the cast, but this turned out to be one of the movie's secret weapons, as Mel Gibson was able to cast a who's who of character actors who at the time were totally unknown, but would later rise to fame.
He wasn't right in the hat.
First, there was Brendan Gleeson, who would play Wallace's friend Hamish. Nobody at the time had any idea who Brendan Gleeson was, and in fact, he had just recently stopped being a school teacher in Scotland.
I just don't like you no more.
You do like me.
I don't.
You liked me yesterday.
After Braveheart, he started showing up in all kinds of movies, including The General, The Tailor of Panama, and in the 2000s, you could just see him in everything, especially if it was a historical movie. The same could be said of Brian Cox, who played William Wallace's uncle, Argyle. Cox and Gleeson would become such mainstays of movies in the 2000s that it seemed that every blockbuster that came out had at least one of them in it, and hey, sometimes they'd both be in it, like Troy, another historical drama starring, yes, the man who Mel Gibson once wanted as William Wallace, Brad Pitt. Another rising star at the time was Angus MacFadyen, who would co-star as another Scottish hero, Robert the Bruce. Robert the Bruce would later get 2 latter-day biopics, one of which was Outlaw King, starring Chris Pine, while the other, Robert the Bruce, would actually find MacFadyen reprising his role, even if the movies are otherwise unrelated. French film star Sophie Marceau, who was a household name in France but was completely unknown in North America, would play the future Queen of England, Isabel of France, who's reimagined as Wallace's love interest in a highly fictionalized plot element. In fact, Gibson would take a lot of heat for how far the movie strayed from the facts, but hey, he was making an epic, not a documentary. It would definitely benefit Marceau's career, with her going on to make many North American films afterwards, and even playing a Bond girl in 1999's The World Is Not Enough. Gibson also pulled off a very unusual coup for his casting of the villain, King Edward Longshanks, casting Patrick McGoohan. McGoohan was one of the biggest stars of the 60s in England. He was one of the guys that Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman initially wanted for James Bond, but you see, he was kind of a religious guy and didn't like the idea of playing James Bond as a womanizer. Instead, he'd go on to star as John Drake in a popular spy series, Danger Man, before creating and starring in The Prisoner, which is still widely regarded as one of the greatest TV shows of all time. And Gibson, for a while, looked like he actually would remake The Prisoner, and was always a huge fan of that show, having grown up watching it. Just before he appeared in Braveheart, McGoohan wasn't working much. In fact, his last really prominent role had been in 1981's Scanners. It seemed that at the time McGoohan was battling a kind of losing battle with the bottle, with Tom Mankiewicz, the famous screenwriter, writing in his book that, well, he saw McGoohan once on Skid Row and that, he wasn't looking very good. But McGoohan was able to pull it all together and made a nice little comeback after he starred in Braveheart, with him acting in lots of movies afterwards, including The Phantom, A Time to Kill, and various other movie and TV series before his death in 2009. And for a while, it actually looked like him and Mel Gibson would team up on a remake of The Prisoner. Alas, it didn't happen. Now, here's where a little more controversy comes in. Gibson's long been accused of homophobia as far as the depiction of King Edward II is concerned, with him in the film being portrayed as weak and very effeminate. And in a scene where Edward Longshanks murders his son's lover, some people thought that it was portrayed as something of a lark rather than a horrifying moment of violence. I don't know. I watched the movie and I think that it's supposed to be a scary, upsetting scene, but some other people think differently, I guess. Gibson himself sounded very angry on the commentary track at the accusations that he was being homophobic, but suffice to say, Braveheart is still kind of controversial among some in the gay community, although in 1995, it wasn't something that was really dwelled on. Another element that proved very controversial was how the British were portrayed, with no sympathetic Britons whatsoever. Edward Logshanks especially was portrayed as an almost Hitler-like figure. Gibson was accused of being anti-British, with the same accusation being thrown against him once again when he starred in The Patriot 5 years later, a movie he did not write or direct, but again featured a sadistic depiction of the British. On that note, I think Gibson can be forgiven as well. He was making a movie about Scottish independence, so obviously the British would be portrayed as the bad guys. Again, this is a movie with good guys and bad guys, and no one has ever pretended that it was meant to be taken as fact. In the end, the movie's raves far outweighed its criticisms, and it wound up winning Best Picture at the Academy Awards in 1996 and Best Director for Mel Gibson. Curiously, it was only a modest box office success. The hard R rating certainly didn't help, with the movie almost actually getting an NC-17 rating for how violent it was. I mean, this is a movie where William Wallace, literally at the end of the film, is drawn and quartered, although it's mostly done through suggestion. It has some other really shocking moments of violence, though, including the only time I ever remember seeing in a modern film where somebody actually takes a mace to the face. Oof. It made about $75 million domestically and was far more successful overseas, making about $200 million worldwide. So it turned a very, very nice profit. And it was a massive hit once it hit video and later DVD and later Blu-ray. But it's really the test of time where Braveheart has won the battle. It has become a much imitated film with Wallace's iconic face paint and rallying cries. Kind of, almost a cliche now. It led to a massive upswing in Scottish tourism and made the name William Wallace well known in the history books. For Gibson, it was ultimately a feather in his cap of a career that continued to go strong for at least another decade. He closed out the 90s with another Lethal Weapon movie, a pretty bad Lethal Weapon movie to be honest.
Yeah, Mr. Getz, I was wondering if you would be willing to investigate my privates.
Investigate what?
My privates, you stupid shit. Shut the up.
But in the early 2000s, he'd go from hit to hit, including What Women Want, Chicken Run, The Patriot, and Signs. Yet in 2004, he'd make his magnum opus, a movie even more ambitious than Braveheart, his film The Passion of the Christ, where he boldly financed himself and shot in ancient Aramaic. Everyone thought he was just nuts for doing this, but you know what? He had the last laugh, as it still ranks as one of the highest grossing R-rated movies of all time. Yet it also solidified him as a deeply religious figure in the minds of the public, which I guess made his casting in romantic movies and action movies somewhat controversial for some. And well, let's be honest, he had some incidents after it came out, a lot of them regarding booze, and well, those totally destroyed his public image to the point that no one would ever cast him in another romantic movie again, even if his action roles for a while continued on. His high-profile ones would kind of dry up at the end of the 2010s, which is too bad because Gibson still looks pretty good and I'm sure could still lead an action movie. Yet, he's continued to direct great movies, with his Mayan-themed Apocalypto widely regarded as another masterpiece, while his World War II drama Hacksaw Ridge was also a big hit. His movies are big, bloody, and epic, but to me, Braveheart is the one that remains the highlight of his really awesome filmography, and a movie I'm always eager to revisit. It's such a gorgeously made movie, with Gibson and his entire crew, including cinematographer John Toll and composer James Horner, really making a lovely film that stands shoulder to shoulder with the great historical biopics like Lawrence of Arabia. And it's also action-packed and peppered with themes that resonate for all, including love, honor, and vengeance. Gibson could have never made another movie after Braveheart, and you know what? His place in the Pantheon would still be assured.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.